Hi, everyone. I chose the topic of continuous improvement, and I chose this topic because as a former classroom teacher and former school librarian, when I would have a lesson with a class or present a program, after the program and after the lesson, I would always try to reflect and think back to what went well, what needs to be changed, what I could do differently next time. And I felt like with that little bit of knowledge, I could maybe make a connection to continuous improvement. So I really wanted to investigate this topic to be able to learn more about how I can apply it to my current job now as a library director. I want us to begin talking about something that might seem a little bit odd, but the company or the home improvement store of Lowe's. And their motto is never stop improving. And if you've ever tried to undertake a home improvement project at your house or at someone else's home, or even try to update landscaping, you know that it usually turns out to be a little bit more difficult than you thought, or it takes a great deal of time to complete. Usually, a large amount of money is involved, and it usually ends up taking a lot of steps, a lot of processes that you have to go through. And so I would like for you to try to remember continuous improvement by remembering Lowe's motto that is never stop improving. So just as Lowe's wants you to always continue to shop in their store, continue to improve your home, it's never quite right. You need to keep adding this or that to make it perfect. Continuous improvement is kind of that same idea. Never stop improving your organization. Try to do those little small things that may make a difference to make your organization as good as it can be. So I'll start off with a description of maybe a little bit more of what continuous improvement is. And we run into the word called Kaizen, and that is a Japanese word that means change for the better or continuous improvement. And the idea behind continuous improvement is that you are evaluating your organization to look for places where you can make small incremental improvements. And it's something that takes place over time. And once you've made those improvements, you then go back and try to see if they're working, see if that small improvement made enough of a change, or if you need to make an additional small improvement. And then the greater goal in all of these small incremental improvements is that you are trying to achieve greater effectiveness within your organization and efficiency. Now, the history behind this starts all the way back in World War I, where a person named Charles Allen tried to, or did develop, a uniform way of building ships. And so, people would look to him to say, oh, we do this first, we do this second. He kind of made it into a process. Then in the 1920s, Shewart studied statistical reasoning about whether or not a change would affect a certain variable. So he kind of began to study small incremental changes. Then Deming was an understudy of Shewart, and Deming created something called the plan, do, check, and act. And this is something that's a cycle. So you would make some sort of plan for a project or your organization. You would implement the plan. You would go back and check and see, did the plan work? Do we need to change something? Do we need to modify something? And then you would act again on that change. And then it kind of follows a circle that you're going all the way around the circle each time. Then in the 1950s, Deming and Duran partnered, and they began to study quality control. It was in 1954 that this concept was introduced to Japan, and many types of quality control have come out of that. You may have heard of some of these before: Six Sigma, Kanban, daily management, the plan, do, check, act, and the total quality management. So they're really trying to look at the quality of products. And an example of this being used today is with the company of Toyota. They work to improve their manufacturing process. Years ago, they would line up the cars on the assembly line bumper to bumper, and they found that employees had to take numerous steps to walk around the car to add certain parts and pieces. So just by making the small incremental change of lining the cars up door to door down the assembly line, they were able to save workers number of steps, and they were able to increase their effectiveness and efficiency within their assembly line. So that's a little bit about the history of continuous improvement. So if we look at organizational impact, I've broken it down into 3 separate categories: the past, the present, and the future. So if we take a look at continuous improvement of the past, I feel like in the past that production was very important to organizations. People were considered only a number. They were worker 1, 2, 3 or something. And there was not very much concern about the effectiveness of the organization or the efficiency within the organization of how they produced whatever product they were making. I also feel like workers' opinions were not valued. We didn't really ask the worker, how do you think we could make this better? You know, we realize this is your job every day. What do you see that we could change or do differently? So that's kind of the past mentality of continuous improvement. But then if we look at today, we see there has been a change. We see that workers' voices are heard and workers are included in these Kaizen events to try to make small changes to make their organization better. They are encouraged to share their thoughts and feelings and suggestions, and they have a genuine stake in, I want to make my job better, and I know if my job is better, it makes the organization better. If we look toward the future, this is really an active process. I do feel it's something that's not temporary. I feel like it's going to be something that it's going to become a way of life of how organizations function in the future. I feel like there's a lot of positive, long-lasting effects on organizations that use continuous improvement. And the constant idea behind this is that you're trying to be better tomorrow than you were today. What can we change that makes our company better, our organization better, our processes better, all of those things you're trying to better. And then workers are being asked to use their critical thinking and to dig deep and think about how can their part help the organization as a whole to accomplish their goals. So it's really something where workers are heavily involved now, whereas we said in the past, they were not involved at all. If you look at the organizational impact on employees and customers, you're going to see several benefits. Of course, we've talked about with our book, Good to Great, how the way that this impacts employees is that you must hire the right people and, make sure that they're in the right spot for your organization. This is going to help increase morale within the organization, within the people, and that, of course, is something positive. And if you hire the right people, they're going to want to help your organization to thrive. We talked about their thoughts and opinions being valued, and that's something that's very important to employees. And that's how, if organizations choose to implement continuous improvement, then their thoughts and opinions are going to be more valued. I feel like continuous improvement promotes the team idea and lets people know where their spot is on the team and then work hard to increase production or increase that mentality that we're all in this together. Let's see if we can make our division better to therefore make the whole organization better. And then customers receive a lot of benefits if they are in contact or have an account with an organization that uses continuous improvement. There's going to be many, many benefits. The first is going to be that they receive better service. And this could be in numerous forms, but it could be on the phone or through an email or quicker response times. All of those things, they're just going to receive a lot better service because the organization has really tried to make things user-friendly for their customers. They're going to have reduced wait times, maybe if they're talking on the phone or trying to get in contact with the organization. And then there's also going to be fewer errors with customer accounts. And that could be if they're shipping products, there's going to be fewer errors, or name, address, telephone number, just generic things like that. Customers are going to see a lot of benefits because the organization they deal with is using continuous improvement. Now, as I reflect back on this concept, something, I'm making that connection again to Lowe's home improvement and trying to improve your home and your yard and different things like that. And then I'm also thinking about ideas to make improvements. And so I thought of the word containers. So I want you to think for a minute of a literal box, like a container. And then I want you to think about figuratively being able to put ideas into chunks or containers. So if you think about purchasing the actual physical container, there might be a place in your organization where you do need to tidy up. You need to put things in like places, in like categories to help your workers and your organization function better. But then there's probably also going to be some places where there are some processes or there's some procedures that need to be looked at, streamlined. Let's take away number 4, or let's add a number 7. And so I really want you to think about, and kind of helped me to understand this idea of continuous improvement, that it can be 2 different things. It can be literally organizing items and physical things, and then it can be putting information in chunks and streamlining processes. So if I try to apply this to my current job of being a librarian, then something that we've tried to work on recently is the library website. And we've had several different groups meet together. We've looked at what we currently have, and we've said, it takes students 4 clicks to get to our databases. Let's see if we can reduce that to 2. And so we'll implement a small change, monitor use on the website, ask students who come in, hey, is it easier for you to find things? Or do you know how to find our databases? And so I feel like I've tried to implement this a little bit in kind of my world, and it has made a difference. It is something that I feel like is very applicable to all organizations. So 3 main takeaways that I want you to understand about continuous improvement. The first one is that it's a way to study processes or procedures at any organization to be able to reduce waste. We're just trying to cut out the things that don't work, take our time, and try to make things as user-friendly as possible. The second thing I want you to remember about continuous improvement is that it works constantly for the betterment of things. We're trying to make things better. If we do make a change and it doesn't make things better, then we can always go back to where we were, but we're constantly working for the betterment of things. And then the third thing I want you to remember is that it's used mainly in industry, but it could be used in other areas like education or healthcare. Anywhere that there are processes and people are trying to create more streamlined things to have those processes take place. One example that I read about in some of the articles was a call center. And I found it very interesting that just after 3 of these Kaizen events, they were able to change some things that dramatically helped their customer service to the public. And the first thing, it took them 24 steps to learn how to do something. It was a certain process they were doing, and they counted, you went through 24 different things. And after this Kaizen event, they were able to get that process down to only 14 steps. So there was a lot of waste there that really wasn't necessary. Another thing that the call center worked on was new employee training. And to train one of their new employees, they went through 12 days of training. And after a Kaizen event, they were able to reduce that training to 8.5 days. So something very simple, they were able to see waste. And then quality assurance or customer service was rated by that call center, and when they began, it was at 50% satisfaction. And then at the end of this event, when they were able to tweak those few things, their customer satisfaction rose to 90%. So there's just a couple of ways of how it has been used practically by organizations. So if you think you might be interested in trying to implement this in your organization, there's a couple of steps that you would need to go through. So the first thing you're going to want to do is in your organization, when you see gaps or you ask yourself the question, why are we doing this? Then that might be your cue to begin investigating. You know, go back to that root cause that we've talked about in the class and really try to think kind of what's going on here. You know, is there something I can do now to try to fix this? Does this seem to be a company-wide problem? And just sort of analyze. So number two, you want to implement those short-term corrections. So you look at a process and you think, I see it, right there it is. If we fix this tiny thing, we no longer have a problem. If you implement these short-term corrections and the situation does not change for the better, then you're going to go to step number three. You're going to form that group. You're going to form a group that might meet together as many as 3 to 5 days. You're going to have approximately 6 to 10 members in this group. And the group is going to be a variety of people within the organization, not just the usual decision makers, but those people that actually perform those jobs that you are having questions about. And those people are going to work to gather data. They're going to visit the actual site where the work is done. They're going to take notes. They're going to kind of share and see, you know, what's going on here with this process. Then number four, they actually map out the process, and their job is to identify the waste. And they say, okay, we think you only need 10 steps instead of 15. Let's cut these things out. They develop a plan of action, and they say, we're going to try to implement these few things. And then they look for improvement. And they also develop, number 6, a sustainment plan, because this is not something we want to just implement and then forget about. We want to be able to implement something, measure and see if it's positively affecting the organization, and then come back to the board if we need to and change some other things. So these are the steps that you might want to follow if you feel like you would want to implement continuous improvement in your organization. So I hope you've learned some things about continuous improvement maybe that you were not aware of, and you've also learned how to implement this in your organization. So please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thank you.